All right, everybody, welcome. While I wait for the rest of y'all all to come. Hi, everybody, welcome to the Honors Student Panel. My name is Siobhan, and I'm going to be moderating today. I'm going to be asking the panelists a few questions, but mostly we want to have you all ask them some questions. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat, and then I will filter them through to our student panelists. But before we get started, I would like for our student panelists to briefly introduce themselves. So if you all would like to start that. Who wants to go first?
I can start. Hi guys, my name is Thanie Dixon. I'm going into my 4th year at CSU, and I'm studying fish, wildlife, and conservation biology. And I also have minors in Spanish and sustainability. And my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Hi, I'm Kira. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm going into my 3rd year at CSU studying biomedical sciences with a minor in chemistry.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Aiden Lewis. I'll be a senior neuroscience major, pronouns he, him, his. I have an English minor and love life, so that's about me.
Our director is also here today, so Dawn, if you'd like to introduce yourselves to all our students. Dawn, you're muted.
And then it was. Hello, I'm Don Michaels. I'm the director of the honors program. Welcome. We're excited to have you here. I'm just going to listen in and see what you guys are going to be talking about.
All right, so again, feel free to put any of your questions in the chat. That will be there at the bottom. But I'm going to start off by asking our student panelists, what is your favorite opportunity that the honors program has provided you that you may not have been able to experience otherwise? Anybody?
I'll go first. My personal favorite is the thesis project that you do your final year. I know I said I was going into my 3rd year, but it's my final year. And for my thesis project, I was able to kind of combine my interests. So I've danced my whole life, but also love my major. And so I was kind of able to combine those and study dance as it affects the body for my thesis, which I'm working on right now. And that was a really, really awesome opportunity to be able to kind of compile all those things. With my major, I wouldn't have done a thesis otherwise. It was just a capstone project. So that was my favorite part.
Go for it, Thanie. It's all you.
All right. Mine is pretty broad, but honestly, I wouldn't have the community I have today if I wasn't in the honors program. And I'm really thankful for the housing that I was in and the honors seminars. That gave me a really unique group of people to be friends with, and all of the people I've been roommates with for the past 3 years have been in honors, and most of my closest friends are from honors as well, because we just were really able to bond and we had similar goals in school. So I'm really thankful for that community.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback it off of Thanie. And fun fact, Thanie and I lived on the same hall our 1st year. Woot woot. The thing I love about honors is that it really gives you a canvas to really create whatever opportunities that you want. So when I came to college, I didn't do anything in high school except play sports and be a mean person. And so when I came to college here in the honors program, finding that community, as Thanie said, it was amazing. And so recently, quick plug, just a quick example is that we made these little videos for you all. And that was just, an idea that we had. And within a week, it became a reality with the help of Siobhan and the rest of the honors admin. So check out those videos. 1, 2, if you have any sort of passion, you can pursue them in the honors program. The world's your oyster.
I know Kai has just joined us, I believe. So Kai, I don't know where you're at, but I see your name in there. If you want to
I'm here.
introduce yourself.
Okay.
And we're talking about like our favorite opportunity that honors has given us that maybe you wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Yeah. Let's see. My name's Kai. Sorry, I'm like in a mall area right now, but I'm good. I'm going to be a senior microbiology major. I study infectious disease. So this pandemic has really allowed me to kind of fulfill a lot of my hopes and dreams of things that I would be able to get involved with. I'm very passionate about public health and helping communities. Let's see. Honors program, I think my favorite experience that comes to mind is that I randomly got placed into an Honors 193 seminar, which is the second semester seminar for track one. And it was like a history seminar. And I was like, I don't do history. This is not my subject. Like, somebody get me out of the seminar. And it ended up being like one of my favorite classes I've ever taken at CSU. And I'm actually working with the same professor of that class on my honors thesis right now. And it is very much related to history. And so that's like just one example of something that the honors program has done for me is, throwing me into a subject that I thought I would never want to be involved in. And then now I'm doing like a 50-page thesis on it. So that's my 2 cents. And yeah, just echoing what Aiden says, follow your passions, but also don't be afraid to try something different. And, in my case, I have found a wonderful way to combine my interest in microbiology and infectious disease with history. And that's something that I never would have been able to do if I just like followed what I thought I should be doing. So definitely follow your passions, build your passions, but try other things because you would surprise yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, Kai. So I don't have any questions in the chat yet. So please, if you have any questions for any of the students or even for, either of us staff, please throw them in there. But maybe let's talk about like research opportunities, because I know a lot of incoming first year students are interested in knowing like what research opportunities are out there or what like you've done. So could anybody talk to what research that they've done?
Yeah, I can start us off. I think the first piece would be a little bit of advice, just encouraging you guys. A lot of things aren't happening as normal, obviously, because of COVID. But research is still very prevalent at CSU right now, and labs are being very creative in ways to keep doing that research and doing it safely. So if you thought that the pandemic might have like ruined your chances of getting involved with that, I would just encourage you to still pursue it, because it is one of the few things that almost is running somewhat normally right now. So that's my bit of advice on that. And the second would be just reach out to people if you're interested in research. I did a lot of online meta-analysis research when I was freshman, sophomore year. And that was a lot of like human-bear conflict, which is pretty specific to my major. And then this year I decided to join a lab looking at long-term ecological restoration kind of. And so that's something totally different. It's way more hands-on, and I just started that as a senior. So you have a lot of flexibility, and I would say the honors program gives you a great platform to do that, especially if you let people in labs know that you are interested in writing a thesis with them. So.
For me, I did not work in a research lab my first year, but I was working at actually the front desk in the electrical and computer engineering office. And I think that helped. I was applying to some lab jobs, but I didn't get any. And so I decided to still find a job. And I think that the commitment to a job helped me get the lab job my second year. And I was able to start working in a lab studying HIV and SIV in humanized mouse models and kind of trying to understand how the virus adapted to transmit from monkeys to people. So.
That's awesome. All right, There's a great question in the chat from Luna. What is the best and hardest thing that you've experienced in the honors program?
I have one. So the best thing is obviously the connections that you make. I am still like best friends with people from the honors program that I met my first year. And also the professors. So just to answer, the best part is the people. For me personally, the hardest thing is comparison. And I felt that especially my first year in the residence halls of, I always felt like I wasn't studying enough, I wasn't doing enough, because there was always somebody else that was doing more. And that really impacted me, and so much to a point where I like had to actually like physically leave the honors community sometimes to study because it was just so intense. And I'm not trying to scare you all, but that's just what worked best for me. So I think that that was the hardest part. So knowing that if you're somebody that's like me, and a lot of honors kids suffer from this imposter syndrome of just, I'm not doing enough, I'm not good enough. That was the hardest part for me. But then when I started meeting other people, I realized we all feel this way, and we all feel like we're comparing ourselves to each other. So I think having those conversations with your friends has been really helpful for me to kind of overcome that.
Yeah, and just kind of on that point, Kai, like questions as Brooks, how do you balance other orgs and clubs with honors? Like that wasn't even a question being asked when Kai and I were first coming in. So I'm already really excited about this group. Also, quick plug, check out the video on balancing life things. And we can answer that question here in a little bit because that's a really good question.
All right, how about from Veronica, what has worked well for you to succeed in your courses?
So you'll find in life, and particularly with courses, that people love to complain about stuff. And so my biggest piece of advice is don't get lost in the sauce, don't listen to the haters, show up with an open mindset and make your own opinions about your classes, about your clubs, about people around you and whatnot. It's really generalizable piece of advice. And so, just going in like organic chemistry, that's notorious as like, oh, this super bad class or whatever. And most of you won't have to worry about that until a little later on. And, I showed up and I loved it. So people don't really talk about, my story. People love talking about how much they hated it and love complaining about it. So open mindset. And then there's also a study tip video, check it out. But spread out your studying and find buddies to help you out, lean on one another. That's a huge, huge thing here in college, particularly within the honors program, is leaning on your friends to help. Yeah.
Yeah, going right off of that, I think it's really easy in college to feel like you have to separate your academic and your social life. And I think that's a really easy way to not succeed in your classes, because academics are going to take so much more of your time than they did in high school. And that's okay. That's just the nature of the beast. And if you're able to combine that with parts of your social life, like finding a really good study group, or you have a couple classes with your roommates or kids on your floor that you can meet up over Zoom to do homework, or you're able to study safely somewhere on your floor. If you're able to kind of combine those two aspects so that you don't feel like you're missing out on your social life when you're doing school, but you're still able to study and really take charge of all that homework that is going to come the first couple weeks, I think that's a really good way to overcome that.
I think another thing is it might take a little bit of trial and error to find what works best for you as you're studying. I discovered that I'm someone who does not do well studying and doing homework in my room because that's where I'm supposed to be relaxing. And so I had to find other places to study. And I also don't do well with silence when I'm studying. I need music, I need white noise, I need something in the background. And that was something that just took me a little time of trying different studying techniques to find what worked best. And kind of going off of what you had said, finding a study group or people that you can study with helps so much. But as we've been saying, trying new things, that's what this is all about when you're first coming to college. So try new things, find what works best for you, and do your best to stay organized. I know not everyone is like that, but I'm one of those have a big planner, color-coded things person, and especially if some of your classes are online and things like that, it's easier for things to slip through the cracks. So just try to stay organized as much as possible, and it will help you immensely.
What I'm hearing from you all is it's more than just your GPA and academics.
Oh God,
Other
yes,
stuff.
please.
It's a good message. So how about maybe talking a little bit on how to balance honors with other commitments, like being in clubs, being in organizations, maybe work, research, just everything. How do you balance that?
I can
Yeah.
take this one real quick. Or Aiden, you can go.
Oh no, you go, Kai.
I'll be quick. So I was just the first thing I thought when I read that question in the chat is, it's honors is not like the super detrimental like portion of my schedule that makes it really hard to get involved. It's almost like a helpful, uplifting part of my college life. So just initially, like, don't worry, don't think, oh my gosh, I'm in the honors college, like I'm not gonna have any time for things that people who aren't in the honors college have. Like, that's just not true. But I will say with like managing things, my first piece of advice is that when you get on campus, you're going to want to sign up for everything. And I still do that. I'm a senior and I still do that. So just be really mindful of what you're signing up for. It's important to try things, but don't overbook yourself, because then it gets really hard to like work backwards to manage. So maybe pick a couple things, and then, you know, using your calendar and just scheduling out time. I personally, I know Aiden would never do this, but when I get all of my syllabi, I put everything in. Up to my final. So like that yesterday, I was just entering my final times. I have a final at December 16th at 7:30 a.m., which most people would not know that before school even starts. But I like to do that just so I have an idea of when everything is. And so then I can much easier manage things. But then other people, that's like way too much. So they don't do that, which is fine too. So. My piece.
Classic guy. Yeah, you know, just echoing that. Start off low and slow. So like classes and maybe a club or two. Make sure you're having social time as well. And then guard your time. The more you're willing to give, the more people are willing to take. So make sure you have meals in your day scheduled out, because I know all of you aren't going to do it, but I want you to eat and sleep. Sleep is a human necessity, even though most people overlook it. So sleep 8 hours at least. Yeah, just guard your time, start off low, and then add things incrementally from there.
How about, could some or all of you talk about maybe your favorite seminar that you've had and what you enjoy about the seminars in the honors program? Like what you've gotten out of them?
This one is, honestly, my answer hasn't changed in a while because it was such an amazing seminar. I got to take a class all about film and how international exile and immigration and emigration is like viewed and displayed in film, and how that impacts how we view immigrants as a society and everything like that. And that was a social science, a history, and a film-based course that I never would have experienced. I take almost purely science and Spanish courses, and so I'm super thankful to get exposed to all of that. And I got to watch like amazing accredited films in class and for homework, no complaints there. And it really opened up a lot of positive discussion that I think was really needed. So it helped me branch out, and I loved it.
My favorite honor seminar was actually the one I took my very first semester. It was kind of looking at children's literature. So we read Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in that class. And of course it was my favorite because I love Harry Potter, and I was really excited that I actually got to read Harry Potter in a class. But I really, really loved it because it was an opportunity to look at these books that I read as a child and see kind of the messages that we learn from society, even starting at such a young age, and how that affects us growing up. And a lot of the things that kind of go over our heads and we don't realize that we're absorbing any of this, but we are, and it sticks with us for years until you reread it and say, oh, that's where that comes from. So it was a really, really cool way of starting to become self-aware and learn a little bit about yourself, just coming from what you learned growing up.
I can go to Aiden if you. So my favorite seminar was all of them, but if I really had to pick, I took a film class last fall, so my fall of my junior year, and my professor was like not very nice, which I kind of loved, because I think that when you're an honor student, people kind of treat you in a way. They're like, oh, you're an honor student. But this guy, I mean, he was really nice, but he was really tough on us, which I was really excited about, because I hadn't been like pushed as much as I had until I got in his class. And I remember that like we had this big final project, and I like submitted this like 15-page paper, and I thought it was the best thing ever. And he basically emailed me and was like, this is awful, you have to rewrite it. And looking back on that, like I have never felt so respected before, that somebody like, he spent hours like, you know, helping me make a new one, like helping me draft up a full sentence outline. And like by the time I presented it, like when I had gone back and done it again, I had never been more proud of something that I'd done. And so that's why that was my favorite class, is because he really pushed me. And to me, that was a sign that he really respected me and wasn't just like, oh, this is good, you're an honor student, you're good, A+. You know, he was like, this needs work and I'm going to help you with it. So that was my favorite class. And Carl is like my favorite person now. So that's my answer.
Let's see, man, you know, I think we've all said this, like all of them are just spectacular for all their different reasons. My very first honor seminar was creativity in science, business, and art, and with Francie, and holy crap, man, it just got you out of your everything zone. And we were playing like Duck Duck Goose and cartwheeling and shit, or crap like that, sorry. So that was great. And then I had a honor seminar this past semester. You know, as a STEM student, I would never have taken a political science course in my entire college career until I took this honors seminar. And the Trump administration has never made sense to me until that class. World politics have never made sense to me until that class. It was just spectacular. Keith Jaggers, look out for him. Why do they hate America? Great course. So really, you can't go wrong. I've never heard of someone saying they didn't like their honor seminar. So yeah.
Awesome. So all of these students in here are going to be taking a recitation this next semester. And I know that we have a lot of peer mentors in this group. So could you talk a little bit about the recitation, what's going to be happening in the recitation, all the awesome things that happen while you're there?
I mean, y'all are so lucky. We have the master herself. Kira, please enlighten these students.
Yeah, I'm actually one of the lead peer mentors, which is why he's joking about that. But the recitation was really, really helpful for me. I'm an out-of-state student, and I had never so much as moved houses before I decided that coming to Colorado from Illinois was a great idea. And so having that really small group of people every week that you just connect with and learn from was really, really helpful for me. And so I decided that I wanted to continue and do it as a peer mentor. And I hope that it's the same experience for all of you. A lot of the class, I think our main goal is to give you as many resources as possible within campus, all the different options you have as far as even tutoring or what you can do for some self-care and things like that, but also your peer mentors are going to be there to help and support you. We take some time to go through your 4-year plan with you. and meet one-on-one and talk about second year living and just help navigate all of this with you, because it can get really hard and confusing sometimes. And there are some assignments, but they're all meant to just help you and broaden your view and help you in your self-discovery that is going to happen as you're in school. But yeah, it's more than anything else a resource more so than a chore.
Do any of you have any good stories about when you were in a recitation and maybe how it helped you in your first year transitioning?
I really enjoyed the assignment, where we had to like find a club to get involved with, which I say assignment, but I don't even want to use that word because it was so helpful. And it wasn't even my own participation in picking a club that I thought was cool and telling my class about it. It was listening to the things that everyone else had found. And it totally broadened my horizons of like what I thought was possible to even do in a club. I heard the craziest things, I heard the coolest things. And so that was like an incredible way to find out about that stuff. And that was me just directly learning from what my peers had chosen to get involved in. So I really enjoyed that.
Do you, oh, sorry, go ahead, Nathan.
Oh, no, if you were going to move on, let's move on. I just had another story.
No, please tell your story.
Oh, yeah. Well, so there's going to be some curriculum change with the, I don't know what they're doing. Kira knows better than I do, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be an assignment where you go and you experience something that you've never experienced before. It's called the diversity assignment. And what I did is I went to the CSU drag show, which is it's like nationally famous. And I don't say it lightly, when it was a spiritual awakening, it was amazing. So just, stepping out of your comfort zone is something that we do in the recitations, and, challenge by choice. You don't have to go too far if you don't want to, but that's just one of the great things about honors, is that you can take that opportunity and have a supportive environment to do so.
Do you all have any tips about like living on campus? I know there was a question in the chat about not living in Academic Village and if that would be detrimental to the experience. So does anybody have any, like, speak to that? Like maybe how they
I can touch on that.
Perfect. Go ahead.
So I mentioned it in the chat, but I didn't live in Academic Village because I did not know where I was going to college until like literally a day before I had to decide. So I lived in Edwards, which I absolutely loved Edwards. I think it was a really good opportunity for me to still be involved in the honors program. There was like the whole hall, for me at least, was still all honors students. And Edwards is actually right next to AV for those of you who haven't moved in yet. I felt no difference just because as an honor student, I still had access to all the Academic Village stuff. So I would just walk over and hang out at Academic Village. I didn't feel like I was left out or anything. With managing like living on campus as an honor student, I think kind of echoing what I said earlier is that just knowing yourself and trying to learn, like, do I study best when there's people in the room? I don't know what the study situation is I think they're closing Fireside, which is one place to study. But if you're like, I need to go to the library, then just go to the library and leave. Just knowing that about yourself. Some people prefer to be in their room. Some people, like me, I prefer to like get at least a half mile away from where I sleep. So just learning that about yourself, doing that, being honest with your roommate about what kind of study environment you need, I think you will be fine. So especially with things online, I think you got to really set those boundaries early and just understand like if you do have online classes, where you're going to do those and where you can focus. So
just by the way, I think Kai literally lived in the Fireside Lounge during your first year.
Yes, I did. Yes. So I didn't even live in Academic Village, and it was this joke that I lived at the Fireside Lounge. So yeah.
There's one question in the chat about the best way to take notes in a lecture class. Can you speak on whether y'all are like paper? Are you all paper, or do you want to do things on a laptop? Like, do you have any tips for how you best take notes in a lecture?
I think that is absolutely a personal preference. Everyone is different. I'm even across like my friends and I, we all take our notes differently. I am very much a paper person. I like the process of writing it down and having to sift through notes and know where everything is as I'm studying. Something that really helps depending on if your professors do it or not, and what class you're taking. Like this helped me a lot with physiology, for example, is printing out your class slides ahead of time if they're posted, and then writing things as class is going on, because sometimes professors will talk more so than have everything right there on the slide. So it's easier to just have it printed and then write down what you hear. But it very much depends on what class you're taking and what works best for you. I don't think there's one solution to all of it that's foolproof and just the perfect way to take notes.
Yeah, going off of that, you guys should find out during syllabus week whether your professor is the kind of person who's going to upload those notes ahead of time and their lectures ahead of time. And that's kind of where you can start to make your decisions about how you're going to take notes because it is class dependent. But a good check for yourself is if those notes are posted ahead of time, you can go and look through. If there's a lot of pictures, like Kira was saying, there's a lot of equations, printing those is a very, very good idea, or just having your laptop or iPad with you. And as long as you do that in a respectful way where that's just like enabling your learning, that can be a really good way to go with like fast-paced courses that require a lot of writing and maybe diagrams that you're not able to just hand draw. But yeah, you're just gonna have to try it out for yourself. I always use a combination of having the notes in front of me on my laptop and physically writing things down on paper so that I don't miss things. But yeah, you definitely have some time to try it out. The stakes are pretty low the first 2 weeks, so.
I have something to add too. What everyone has said about printing the notes, I just resound 100%. I think that it's ridiculous to expect yourself to write down every detail. So just printing out those notes or putting them on an iPad if you have that, or a tablet, and taking notes, taking your own notes on top of those is awesome. What Lainey said, reading things through before getting to class is really helpful because then your brain will fill in the gaps. My push for you all is that if you're gonna use a computer, sit towards the back, because everybody can see your computer, and I can't tell you all how many like over text breakups, like Facebook drama that I've watched because, and it's distracting. It truly is distracting. So yeah, if you're gonna use a computer, sit towards the back. So I'd say.
Yeah, you know, I first and foremost, I'm an individual. We're all individuals first. Second, we're students, and therefore I'm a neuroscience student. So I like to base my studying on science. And so echoing what Kai said, they've done studies where if there's a person with a laptop sitting in front, they can map out the degradation of test scores for everyone within like the radius behind that laptop. So if you're going to do that, sit towards the back. Segue, the best way to learn something is to teach it. And so what I really like to do is when the day's over, I'll take like an hour and I'll do a lecture to either an empty room, or if there's people in my classes, I'll give a lecture of everything that I learned that day from school, and I'll write it out on the whiteboard. There we go, right on the whiteboard. But if you're teaching someone, then you're teaching yourself basically, and you'll remember it so much longer. Just take like 10 minutes per class a day and it'll be phenomenal. Don't try and cram like 8 hours studying into a day. Been there, done that, not a good time. So pro tips.
That's a good question in the chat from Liam. With so many classes happening on Zoom this year, do any of you have suggestions for places to do Zoom calls without interference and without disturbing others? I know, tough.
Yeah, that's a really hard one. I would say you might end up exploring Fort Collins a little more than a traditional freshman student if you need coffee shop spaces or more library-like spaces, because most of Fort Collins is functioning if you're social distancing and have a mask on. So I would encourage you to do that because it's full of cool places to focus where it can be quiet. And you also might have to just utilize your room a lot more for those in-person Zoom calls and class discussions and things like that. So I would just encourage you guys to be proactive with your roommates about mapping things out, scheduling things with each other so you're not talking over each other. You could get one of these handy little dividers I have behind me here if you need to do a lot of in-person Zoom calls and you don't want your roommate walking behind you, but your room is the best place. So I would just say be a little innovative and be proactive with your roommate for sure.
Yeah, just brainstorming off the top of my head, I don't know how this is going to work with like physical distancing and whatnot, but if you know other people who are taking the same class as you, instead of like 6 people or 3 people, on different computers, you can try and group it up, but social distance and whatnot. And so like maybe one space, I don't know, I'm just thinking like grouping together so not like 50 Zoom calls going on at the same time, that can be reduced. I don't know.
I think that's a great idea. And, we need to maintain physical distance and stay safe. But, I really like that with what In says. If you can find like 2 or 3 people, if there's space outside to spread out, somebody can take notes, somebody can write stuff on a whiteboard. So just trying to safely maintain that work that you can do as a student with each other, I think is really important. That's the one thing I hope that kids can learn how to do with being largely virtual, is continuing to work together, because that's where real learning happens.
I think the other thing is, if you're worried about interrupting or distracting others as you're on any meetings, finding a space outside will be good, as long as weather permits. There's a Starbucks really close to where I live, and they have outdoor seating, and I went there all the time when I was doing my summer classes to do homework and to watch lectures and everything else. And also, I think even though some classes are on Zoom, there are definitely some classes that are a little more heavier on the discussion side and others that are more about lecturing. And so it may be the case that it won't be a distraction to others and you won't have to talk much. As long as you have headphones, there's a lot of spaces that you could go that wouldn't interrupt others. That just kind of depends on the class, which again is one of those things that once you've had maybe a week of classes, it'll be easier to figure that out for each class.
Thank y'all. I had this question a couple times in the chat. Where do we go to print papers? So do y'all have like any of those functional, oh, hey, I didn't think about that till I got here type of things? Like where do I go on campus to do this?
I think it depends a lot on your major. I was actually just typing that in the chat. It's easier to talk. It depends on your major. And so I'm in the College of Veterinary Medicine and Biomedical Sciences. So we have a lab, but it really depends. You have to ask your advisor.
Yeah, I would just add, like, not to stress about those little things. No one thinks that you're stupid for asking it. So your advisor is a great resource. Just email them. No one expects you to honestly know that coming in. I went a year and a half paying for printing in the library, which is a good backup, because I was too embarrassed to ask where the natural resource printer was, which conveniently is located in the Natural Resources building. But I just felt like I was supposed to know that, and that it was too late 3 months in to ask someone. So just don't be embarrassed to ask that, especially with the pandemic stuff going on. Everything is new for everyone, so you basically get a free pass on like not knowing where things are, what to do in these situations. So your advisor is a great one to ask. I'm sure Siobhan can help you with a ton of questions as well. But yeah, major specific for printing. So ask your advisor.
It's also a really good thing to ask your peer mentors, because they've been through that as well, and they're a good resource for that sort of thing. So any of those little things that you don't know where they are on campus, your peer mentors are there for you, always. All right, one quick one before we get to the end. I know this is really early for a lot of these students to be thinking about this, but I know 4 of you are pretty much to your thesis level right now. So how did you connect with like your thesis advisor? How did you get into your topic? of interest. How did you flow into what you were doing your thesis on? How did that happen?
I don't know if anybody else has started theirs. Well, I guess we all kind of have.
Yeah.
I'll briefly touch on mine. It was just one of my honors seminar. Again, this is so, like, you all do not have to worry. You will find somebody. It's going to come so natural. For me, it was my honors 193 professor. And then knew I was interested in history, and took a couple years, continued to take my classes in microbiology. Got really interested in infectious disease, but still was thinking a lot about that history class and how much I loved it. And so I actually went to Washington, D.C. one summer, and then realized that I wanted to do my thesis on the 1918 flu pandemic. And I started that in the fall and had this wonderful idea that I was going to analyze through historical lens the flu pandemic, and then create a proposal to CSU's administration for what to do in the case of a pandemic on campus. So that was last fall. COVID beat me to it. I'm really upset. I have to change my thesis now. But that's kind of how it flowed. And so I had all these ideas that I had built up of this is what I'm interested in. And I kind of made a hybrid of it. And so it was a really creative endeavor that I'm still really proud of, even though the whole point of my thesis kind of got taken over. So that's how it worked for me.
I was planning to just do some kind of thesis with my research lab, but you will enroll in a pre-thesis course. And when we were in there, the instructor had said that some majors will want you to do it within your major, but a lot of times you can do your thesis in whatever area you want. And like I had said, I started thinking how could I make dance part of this, because I have been out of dancing for 2 years and I miss it a lot. And so I just kind of started shuffling some ideas in my head of what I could do for a dance thesis, which, to be completely honest, I wasn't really sure what that would look like. So I actually reached out to the head of the dance department and just asked if she knew anyone who would even potentially be interested in being my advisor or tossing ideas back and forth with me and seeing what would happen. I got connected with the dance instructor. She is my advisor now. We've been working together, and she was the one who gave me the idea of trying to see how I could fit dance and BMS into one project. And so it's pretty developed now. I'm actually starting to teach the course that I developed next Saturday. So all it took was me reaching out to someone I didn't know, and we made connections, and it just went from there and took off on its own.
I can go next. My thesis hasn't really begun, but I will start the research background stuff for it in September. So I'm in the baby steps right now. But I was one of those people who was kind of worried because I didn't know what was going to happen with my thesis. I knew I didn't want to do it on the stuff I had been working with a professor on since freshman year. And that was scary. I was like, I don't know, can I branch out? Can I do it on something I haven't had a lot of experience in? And the answer is totally yes. So I would just encourage you, as you think about your senior thesis down the road, just think about kind of what you want it to serve for you and for your future. If you want it to be a total investigation of your favorite hobby or something that's really important to you, like several people in this chat have, and you want to be curious and discover things and learn and write in a way that you wouldn't be able to for a class, then you can totally make it that and kind of do it more on your own and find someone who's willing to help you with it. Or you can kind of do what I'm doing, where I really want it to serve kind of as a distinct step in me for me to go to grad school. And I want it to be very productive for me, and I want to learn some tangible skills with data analysis. And so I'm doing it with the lab that I'm in now, with ecological research. And so those are kind of like two paths that you can start to think about, whether you want it to be like your own investigation, things you love, and really take it where you want, or if you want it to be something that's very set in stone with a lab, because you can definitely do both.
Yeah, this is some bad advice, but I don't have a thesis advisor, and I'm working on my thesis right now, and hoping that someone will be on board post hoc. Um, so, couple things to take away from that is first, do something you're passionate about, and second of all, talk to potential advisors early on and whatnot. Unfortunately, I had some um, unfortunate life circumstances happen to one of the professors that I was really hoping to work with, but we're sending it anyways. But yeah, just start thinking now, and just have it on the back of your mind. What are you passionate about? What do you want to do? Is this going to be a stepping stone for grad school like Thane? Is this, something amazing that you're going to do for the community like here or Kai? So just have a general idea of what you like to do and explore throughout college of what you like to do. So yeah, that's the advice there.
Awesome. Let's see. I don't have any more questions in the chat for right now.
Luna just said, does every honor student have a specific honors advisor?
Yeah, so Luna, Diane is the main track 1 advisor. I am the advisor for track 2 students. So, I mean, there's both of us here in the office. We can both help out. So you'll have 2 advisors, one in your major, 1 honors advisor. And if you're pre-health, pre-something, you'll have another advisor. So you'll have tons of help here at CSU for all of that. And I know the 4 of you can contest. Lots of people to help out. I don't think we have anything else in the chat, so I am going to wind up with one more question. So is there any advice, anything that you would have for this group of incoming first-year students, if you could impart some wisdom upon them? What would it be?
I can start. So I read this Time magazine the other day, and I don't know if you can see the cover, but it's all about you and your generation coming into college or doing whatever you're doing right now. And I was so inspired by how brave, how courageous, how strong you all are. So just never forget how amazing you are. Always keep yourself in mind, and you're going to do amazing things. So thank you.
I think we've touched on this a lot, saying to explore your interests and just kind of do what you want. But I am one of those people who came into school thinking, okay, I'm here to get my degree so that I can go to vet school. And so I have to be really super focused because I have to have a fantastic GPA and everything just has to be so perfect the way it's all lined up. And I think that I suffered in a way of making myself too busy sometimes and losing touch with some of the things that I loved and that made me happy. And like I've said, with dance and how it circled back around to that with my thesis project. And like now I'm back into it. I'm dancing at a studio in Fort Collins and in a dance company and all of these things. I think you're absolutely going to get the best experience if you don't put the barriers around yourself because of expectations that you're putting on yourself or others are that you have to do college a certain way. You don't. It's a completely individual experience. And so do the things that make you happy. Do what feels right for you. Don't make decisions out of a, I have to, I should, I need to. Do things because you want to.
I'll give a kind of general but cheesy piece of advice. I think almost every freshman coming to college right now is probably a little bit bitter because this freshman year looks so different for you than it did for everyone else. And I just want to validate you that that is totally fair to be like, what the heck? I think a lot of people's lives were overturned by this, and coming to college in the middle of a pandemic looks very different and is a struggle that maybe no one wanted to have put on them this time. But I would just encourage you to like let go of what could have been, because what's coming is going to be great. It's still going to be amazing. It's still your freshman year of college. You're going to have to put in more effort, I think, to establish those connections in this semi-virtual world that we're now living in. But I think it is totally possible. And I would just encourage you to utilize this online platform. It's broken down a lot of international barriers, like talking to people who aren't physically around you. And I think that you guys could really still make it amazing. So I just want to validate you if you're feeling frustrated by the current situation, but I encourage you to take advantage of the different opportunities it could bring.
That was awesome. So thank you to our 4 panelists. They are amazing. Hopefully I got to all of your questions. That's pretty much it for today. Thank you all for attending. We're so happy that you're here. We are excited to see you next week, and have a great weekend. Be safe.